Hi, Jordi. Thank you so much for coming to the Investor Talk. How are you today?
Hi, Max. I'm fine, thank you. And thank you for having me here. It's a pleasure.
Thanks to you for coming and thank you for your time. Founders will enjoy what we are going to talk today. Shall we start with an introduction on yourself?
Sure, absolutely. My name is Jordi Ferrer. I'm an economist by training, and with an MBA, I'm currently investment director for quality of life or healthcare projects at Ship2B Ventures, which is an impact venture capital fund based out of Spain. We invest in early stage projects within the healthcare, climate change, and education sectors.
Thank you. I mean, in terms of geography, where do you prefer to invest?
In terms of geography, we are quite focused in Spain so far, although we have a 20% of funds that can be invested across Europe in general.
So you invest also outside Spain?
Yes. So our main focus is to have, at least to be aware of all the healthcare, climate change and education projects in Spain, and to have focused in impact projects there.
What's normally is the ticket size?
Ticket size will go from 500K to 1 million euros, although we have the possibility to follow on and to invest up to 4 millions per company.
That's including follow-up?
That's including follow-up, of course, yeah.
Thank you. I mean, for what is my understanding, you are pretty early in investing. So which are the top concerns and where do you find conviction when investing? What do you see the most, the company, the team, the product or service they are delivering?
I think in early stage investment, so we are investing from seed to Series A, the team is clearly the single most important factor. Definitely the team is both at the same time what convinces us usually and also where we get concerns. Nevertheless, within our process, we identify three clear characteristics that are, of course, team, but also market size, and the clinical need or the need in general, depending on the project. So we have to get the three of them in order to get to full conviction. Whatever doesn't make the three of them, we will have concerns.
I mean, in terms of how, for example, be early, the team, as you said, is so important. May I ask you, which are the main skills you weight when it comes to founders, if possible, of course?
Yes, absolutely. So we will prefer a team rather than a single entrepreneur. So our wish list, right? You cannot always have it all, but our wish list will be that there's a team that they are already experienced in their field, preferably with previous entrepreneurship experience as well. That they are very driven by their purpose, and at the same time humble enough to listen to other people and to be aware that they have to pivot or that they have to consider other options when needed. So we will want to find this balance, right? So clear experience on one side, but some humbleness on the other side, and of course an outstanding drive to bring the project forward.
For what is my experience, very complicated to find sometimes founders has to be convinced who they are. I need to be very big-headed because otherwise you cannot be a founder. You go through so many problems and challenges. At the same time, be humble because you need to be capable to listen. It's a very strong combination.
It is not so easy to find. This is why whenever you find a team with these characteristics, this means that this team has something, right? So I completely agree with you. Yeah.
I do agree. I mean, how important is proximity for you? I mean, you said you have 20-30% left around Europe. But how important is, for example, having face-to-face when it comes to investments?
I think face-to-face, I think out of, what has happened recently with the pandemic, we have all learned to work remotely and work online. Nevertheless, face-to-face is still important. In our case, we always do at least one face-to-face meeting while we are analyzing the opportunity. So we always want to meet the team at least once in person. And then when we are already investment, we try to have at least a couple of in-person meetings with the team. So we try to have some, although it's not mandatory. I think proximity is good too, although it's not mandatory. And this will depend also on the type of the project. So earlier stage projects or with less experienced entrepreneurs, we will prefer more proximity because we believe we can bring more value, right? The closer the project is to where you are, the more likely it is that you can bring value by connecting to stakeholders that you know that they can provide value to them, or the more likelihood of you attending an event that could also be helpful for the company, so on and so forth. So it will depend. It's nice to have, but I will say it's not needed, 100% needed.
I mean, you said adding value. How do you get involved with your portfolio, and how do you think you can add value to that?
We try to be relatively hands-on, provided that it's always the founder's vision and we are not going to interfere in that. We try to be hands-on. I usually meet with the founders every 2 weeks to follow on progress. And then again, it will depend on the project, but I will try to bring value either on identifying a short-term plan, for instance. What is it to be implemented in the next 6 to 12 months? What are the milestones that we want to achieve before the next round? This would be one. Other companies, we could get more operationally involved in business development, for instance, or if it's more a research project, also trying to connect to the right people. So we will extend our network to our companies. Because of our impact focus also, we will be very hands-on in the impact KPIs, and we will want to make sure that the founding team is aware and is implementing impact methodologies, and we will want to see the progress in the impact KPIs. So we will want to see how they are doing in terms of social impact or environmental impact. So we will be very hands-on there too.
I mean, in terms of leading, do you prefer to lead, to follow the investments?
Yes, we prefer to either lead or co-lead, and this is also very linked to the value that we can bring, right? So we usually invest in projects that we firmly believe that we can bring value. Otherwise, we're not so much interested. And it's also linked to the impact. Actually, in our shareholders agreement, we will want to add some clauses that are related to governance and that will relate governance to impact. We will also want to add some, as I was mentioning, the impact KPIs earlier. So we will want to add this reporting of these KPIs within the shareholders agreement. So it makes much more sense when we are leading.
What about when your startup you invested needs another round, for example? Are you going to help them?
Absolutely. I already mentioned that we want to follow on. So this is the first way to help them. When we invest from the very beginning, they know that they will get our support in the next rounds. Also, I already mentioned the 6 to 12 months plan that we do. I think this is very important because it sets the milestones that we want to achieve to have a successful next round. So when we are ready, we also help with the round strategy, even with the deck. And of course, we will extend to our network to find other investors.
Thank you. I mean, how do you expect your investment to help your portfolio? Should they have some kind of interactions between them?
Yes, and this is key. Actually, we believe we are an ecosystem fund. So our portfolio companies become part of our ecosystem. We will have both formal and informal mechanisms for them to meet. We have our ship to be day, in which, of course, they will all attend and they will all meet each other and get to know better what each other does. Also, the fact that we're investing in very similar spaces, we believe they can have synergies. Therefore, we will also connect them when we believe there's a mutual interest. So we will get introductions when we see that there can be value among them. So definitely, this is part of our strategy.
Thank you, Jordi. I mean, I've been talking to few venture capitalists. Someone like you, they really want to have this kind of ecosystem. Others prefer let them alone, do what they want to do. I see very common in corporate venture capitalists trying to create an ecosystem.
Interesting. I did not think it like this. We don't compare to corporate venture capitalists, but yes, we are very we are firmly believers that ecosystem is the way to go, and of course through impact, but also through the sectors that we are investing. I think this brings a lot of value rather than being alone.
I mean, before you were talking about pivoting, there are funders that believe pivoting is the proxy of failure. What would you like to say to them? I mean, should they pivot when the time is arrived, and don't pivoting means probably failing?
I think you said it. So first and foremost, failing is part of the process, and even more at this early stage. We all know that there's a high risk, high volatility. So failure is normal, and it's not at all an issue. Having said this, learning from failure and learning from experience is key. And when we were saying that we want humble teams, it's precisely because of this, because we want open-minded people that can learn from the traction that they are getting and have the sense of where to go next if they are not reaching the expected milestone. So pivoting is also key. We understand that several of our projects will pivot at some point and somehow, and we will support that, definitely. Although I will bring again our impact perspective. Usually the teams we invest in are very purpose-driven, and they are very committed to the cause of their project. So usually there's not an issue here. But in the event that pivot means getting rid of the social part of it or the impact part of the project, in that case, we will very carefully make a transition to another investor that can see an interest after pivoting. So we will always continue as long as the purpose is still there.
Thank you. That's very interesting. When did you become an investor?
That's a great question. I think probably because of curiosity. I'm always been very curious. I'm always been very aware that things are constantly moving, and I like to explore different projects, different sectors, see what's the next big thing. And probably this is what made me become an investor. Also, the fact being an investor allows me to have broader reach rather than a deeper reach. And I think I've always been trying to see many different things rather than being very expert in a single one. So it goes very well with my way of being, with my personality. And again, it's speaking about impact. I think it's the way I can maximize my impact. So it was kind of a natural choice.
Thank you. You see so many startups as early stage investors. I do believe probably many of them at some point they look similar in strength, weakness, and so on. So which are the critical points that trigger your decision ultimately? Okay, I'm going to decide to get with these guys and not these guys. What is going to trigger and say, okay, let me go with them and not with the others?
So ceteris paribus, if all other conditions are equal, we will definitely see the intentionality of the team. What triggers them? What is it that is motivating the team? this will be the first single factor. Then, as I said earlier, we will look again at the team, making sure that they are the most experienced, or they are open-minded enough. So we will look at this, and of course, again, we will look at the clear need out there and the clear opportunity or market growth.
If there is any, what can be the perfect recipe for a pitch that convinces you?
That's a great question too. It would be very difficult to identify a single recipe. Probably there are many. I just know that the pitches that get are the ones that convince me in their very first slide, right? So for some reason they are able to communicate the problem very easily, and they are able to connect the causes of the problem with the solution. And when I see this in an easy way, then everything comes very smoothly afterwards. Yeah.
What's your suggestion to founders when approaching a venture capitalist? Many of them, for example, they still use spray and pray approach. So I'm going to send emails, cold emails, and talking to many, and maybe someone will come up. What's your suggestion for them?
I would suggest them to do their homework. I think it's fundraising is very people related, and it's about people connections. And there might be several venture capitals out there. There might be several startups out there, but at the end of the day, this is a rather small ecosystem, and everyone somehow gets to know each other at certain points. So I would recommend them to do their homework in first of all in who approaching and why, and understanding what is this venture capital fund doing and why would it be a fit, and try to have this to connect this very easily. And then of course do their homework in terms of the project. So why do they need the funds? What are they going to do with them? What do they want to reach? So when we meet, in 1 minute, 2 minutes, we can easily see if there's a connection. They have to bear in mind that we get a lot of suggestions every day, like either through LinkedIn or emails or whatever. We receive a lot of proposals, and it's a pity when we see that someone that clearly doesn't fit just took the time to send a completely random email to you asking for some for funding. So I would suggest do your homework and get personal. It will open many other doors.
Thank you so much. How important is the IP? You invest in healthcare, so IP in healthcare is pretty strong. How important is for you that the IP belongs to the founders?
It is very important. It has to belong to the founders. We see in many tech transfer projects, it usually belongs to the research center, and then there's a license agreement. That's fine, but definitely it's much better than the IP belongs to the startup itself. Nevertheless, I would say that the IP concept per se is decreasing interest. So you will want to have other types of entry barriers, especially talking about, we invest a lot in digital health, for instance, or any investment we do is tech driven or software related. So, and it's very difficult to have an IP there. So we will want to see other types of barriers.
Let me close with, what will be the best and most promising sector in your case in impact health tech for the years to come? Where should the founders, for example, that they want to start a venture in health tech with impact aspect? Health tech is so huge.
So that's a great question. I would say, so health tech is impact per se. Impact is investing is going to be a huge wave. We are starting to see regulations from Europe, not only in healthcare, in whatever sector agnostic, regulations in Europe. We are seeing Horizon 2030 and an impact or circular economy, environmental consciousness is going to be there. So whatever the sector, bear in mind the impact you're bringing, bear in mind that, that you have to measure the impact of what you do, either to your patient or either with the environment or either with your user. Whatever you do, bear in mind that if you can quantify the impact or the benefits to your user, you're going to be better off. So I would say the most promising sector is impact investing in general. Get a product or a solution that has the user at the front, and whatever you do, please make sure that you are able to quantify the benefits that you're bringing to the user. And for sure, you're going to find investors and customers if you achieve that.
Jordi, thank you very much for coming to the Investor Talk. It's been a very great pleasure for me.
It's a pleasure, Max. Thank you very much for inviting me.